It's 2:15 a.m. on July 31st, 2020. It's the inverse of 512, right? This is my triple 512 woman. Um in 2018, Time magazine published an article on its Man of the Year, Person of the Year, who was Jamal Khashoggi. He was a journalist allegedly murdered in the Saudi embassy in Turkey. His body was dismembered. There was controversy. In that particular issue, Time magazine spotlighted numerous journalists. As a matter of fact, there was a total of 52 journalists who were named in a spread, a form of what I understood to be an index. My concern is that what was happening was that they were using the deaths of journalists and reports on the deaths of journalists as a form of underwriting on municipal securities. See, it requires a Series 53 license in the United States in order to broker municipal securities. And there were 52 journalists, including Khashoggi, who were listed in Times Man of the Person of the Year. And my concern was that what it would happen is it allowed for a 53rd journalist to be inserted, and then metrics correlating with the capital contributions of the bodies of work of those journalists could then be used as somebody's particular scheme. As a matter of fact, there might well be somebody out there that doesn't have a 53, but maybe a 56. Or maybe there is an established brokerage somewhere that has been using something similar in other kinds of context and thought they would specifically use Time Magazine's spread as an index and then do various things with reports on murdered journalists, including potentially even reports on prosecutions of a journalist that had already been murdered many, many years ago, or maybe connected to journalists getting arrested, or something targeting a journalist, and would be able to use it in connection with that as an index for literally brokering municipal securities. Now we're dealing with these protests around the country, not just the country, around the world, presumably about racial justice. A lot of it has to do with defunding the police. And the thing that's been most confounding for me is that one of the primary things that ends up going into the underwriting of and the process of compiling a municipal bond is statistics on the police and fixed assets connected to the police department, as well as other emergency response departments like the fire department, the municipal departments, and public schools. And it is absolutely amazing to see how precisely these civil protests and these murders of innocent people by police, it is absolutely predictive. It's not only absolutely predictive, it's absolutely confirmable with public notices that are allowed to be put in the media. I have not been allowed to be acknowledged as a journalist for going on 5 years. Ever since I contacted Congress and asked for an investigation specifically into my allegations of abuse of power by a Secretary of State, a former Secretary of State, in connection with personal interest she had with a specific banking establishment that, by the way, happens to be at the core not only of the primary issuances of these municipal bonds, but also is the supporting agency of the primary insurer on municipal bonds. It's that strategic, it's that precise. Every time. If I wanted to be, I could have been running the racket myself, right? I have right now 3 articles that total 53 journalists. The headline in India is 50. The headline in the United States is 2. They're all live, but they're under some sort of sanction or arrest. However, there's some journalists from a country of the former Soviet Union who was investigating corruption, whose death notice was announced at the same time. He died in prison. That's public notices on 53 journalists on July 30th, 2020, one of whom is dead, and the other 52 around which you can pivot in consideration of their bodies of work. Now, I already wrote what would have been a follow up to the report I submitted to Congress in March of 2016. What happened is they let me get kidnapped again, but it's one of those special kinds of kidnappings. When you're politically disappeared, your value, your use value is very different. They just harvest me and steal what I do and they sell it off to other people. And I contend that's what they're doing with these journalists right now. If they're actually journalists and they're not securities brokers, if they're not merely some corporate parrot providing a public notice for some strategically coordinated stock transfer, chances are they're on this list, right? Because it would seem that if you're actually reporting on news, they're going to find some jackass reason to get a bond on you.